All right, what if I told you that a quiet, unassuming American suburb was actually a billion-dollar spy hub? I know, it sounds like a movie plot, right? But today, we're diving into a really fascinating analysis that claims just that. We're going to follow the data trail, starting with one really strange question all the way to a pretty jaw-dropping financial model. So let's jump right in.
So everything really kicks off with this one central question. You've got an analyst looking at what seems to be a massive deployment of people. We're talking 50,000 alleged foreign agents, all concentrated in one quiet Texas suburb. And it just doesn't add up, right? There were no big military bases, no political headquarters, nothing. So why on earth would they all be there? It's a real head-scratcher, and it's the mystery that gets this whole thing started.
And look, this isn't just some vague theory. It's tied to a very real, very specific place. The source material points directly to this zip code, 77494, in Katy, Texas. The claim is that a leaked database literally flags over 50,000 properties right in that area. So this isn't just any suburb. It's supposedly ground zero for this entire operation.
Okay, so that brings us to our first section, the Katy anomaly. Because before we can even get into how something like this might work, we really have to wrap our heads around the why. If this wasn't your typical James Bond-style spying, then what was the real mission here?
And honestly, the mystery just gets deeper when you think about what isn't in Katy, Texas. The analyst in the source material basically goes through a checklist, ruling out all the usual reasons for espionage. You know, no big political centers, no major corporate headquarters, no rare minerals, nothing. And when you eliminate all the obvious answers, you're forced to consider something, well, something totally different. The why had to be unconventional.
And then you get the breakthrough moment. According to the source, the analyst, knowing he was probably being listened to, has this conversation with his brother. He starts throwing out a few different hypotheses. And then he says it. What if this whole thing isn't about stealing secrets, but it's about money laundering? The very next day, a one-word message supposedly comes back from an informant. And that word? Bingo.
And that single word, bingo, well, it completely unlocks the puzzle. This is where we get to the billion-dollar hypothesis. The theory is that this isn't just some spy operation. No, it's a massive, self-funding, billion-dollar economic engine hiding in plain sight. Now, let's actually look at the numbers behind that.
Okay, so how do you even begin to put a price tag on a secret operation? Well, the source uses this really interesting technique called headroom analysis. And the idea here isn't to get a perfect, down-to-the-penny calculation. Not at all. It's about getting a sense of the scale, the order of magnitude. Are we talking about $1 million problem or a $1 billion problem? It's a way to map out the financial potential, even when you have imperfect information.
And this table shows the pretty incredible results of that analysis. Just look at that top line. Residential financing alone, the network supposedly pulls in over $500 million a year just in interest. And then you start adding in the other stuff, gasoline sales, credit card processing fees. All of a sudden, the most mundane parts of suburban life start adding up to a massive, massive financial operation. So individually, yeah, these are just numbers. But when you start to piece them together, you can really see the anatomy of this hub. Let's take a closer look at the biggest moneymakers here.
I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this. The analysis claims that financing homes for these agents, just that one activity, generates over $500 million every single year. Then you throw in gas for their cars and fees from their credit cards, and just those top three streams are already knocking on the door of $1 billion. It's like everyday life, but turned into a profit machine. So yeah, when you add it all up, the home loans, the gas, the credit cards, even these property tax protest schemes, the total annual value this network can supposedly pull from just one single Texas zip code is, well, it's staggering. The source puts the final estimate at just about $1 billion a year.
All right, $1 billion claim like that, you need some pretty extraordinary proof to back it up. And this is where the whole analysis shifts from just theory to actual data. The source doesn't just say, trust me on the numbers. No, it claims to provide the raw data and even a step-by-step guide so that anyone can try to verify these findings for themselves.
But entire foundation for this is something the source calls the Geo-index. Supposedly, it's an internal database of all the network's assets, captured on one specific date, September 11th, 2024. But here's the crucial part. The source claims to have cracked this data and then made it publicly available. The whole idea is that anyone can go in and check their work.
And this is literally the recipe they give you for verification.
the source lays out these exact steps. The claim is that you, anyone with a free Google account, can go to this tool called BigQuery, plug in this public project ID, and start running your own queries on the exact same raw data. That's a pretty bold move, right? It's basically an open invitation for the entire world to fact-check the core of this whole analysis.
And once you start digging into that data, you find some fascinating comparisons. Take this one. Jefferson City, Missouri apparently has more indexed properties than Katy, but, and this is the key, the average home value in Katy is double. This really seems to suggest that the strategy isn't just about having the most people on the ground. It's about maximizing the economic value you can squeeze out of a location.
So if we think of Katy as a blueprint for one of these high-value economic hubs, what's the big picture strategy? Well, the source argues this isn't just a one-off thing in Texas. Nope, it's supposedly just one piece of a much larger global playbook. And it's all built around one single powerful concept.
And that powerful idea is simple: control the aggregators.
The source claims this network doesn't bother with a bunch of small, fragmented players. Why would they?
Instead, they allegedly go after the one or two big dominant systems in any given sector. It makes perfect sense, right? You get maximum control for the minimum amount of effort.
And this is where the theory really goes global. The source argues that the same playbook they used in Katy, targeting those key financial players, can just be scaled up. Think about it. If you can control the main digital payment system, you effectively control a huge chunk of a country's commerce. If you control the digital ID system, you've got a whole new level of social influence. It's all about finding and controlling the key choke points in our modern centralized world.
So we'll end on this one last pretty startling detail from the source's data. The analysis points to an unusually high household income compared to the home values in this Katy hub. So high, in fact, that it creates a situation where a $500,000 home could, in theory, be paid off in just 3.5 years. Now, an average American family takes about 30 years to do that. So what does that difference tell us about the financial engine supposedly driving this network? And how does that reality compare to the one the rest of us live in? That's definitely a question worth thinking about.